Hello, everybody, and welcome to a Wednesday edition of Power Rankings as Week 3 begins after a Tuesday night game between St. Louis and Dallas. Before I dive into the rankings, I want to quickly say if you're new, subscribe, it would be greatly appreciated. Leave a like, let me know your thoughts down below. Now let's jump right into these. Number 8 is the Columbus Aviators. Probably the biggest disappointment so far this season is this Aviators team. At its core, it's a roster that was in the UFL championship game just last season, but now they are tripping over themselves constantly in games despite being gift wrapped chances after chance in these games. The entire final 2 minutes of the first half and into the second half is a good example of just this. From the 3 and out to begin the sequence, then recovering the muffed punt, back-to-back penalties against DC, which led to a 6-yard rushing touchdown for Jaquandre White. All of that is a good job of capitalizing off of what you're being given. Then on the very first play from scrimmage, they pick off Jordan Teamu, which gives them another great opportunity to get back into this game and make it so the next time DC sees the ball offensively, this game is either tied or Columbus has the lead. Instead, Jalen McClendon throws an interception of his own, and it was a pretty bad interception on top of that. They get ball to begin the second half, and then they move the ball pretty well, only for McClendon to fumble, and then they have to punch shortly after that. DC will take the advantage to then score 2 plays later, and from there it was pretty much the game. It was a perfect opportunity completely wasted by this Columbus team, and this is not the first time this has happened this season already. Multiple opportunities against Orlando were also wasted due to mental errors of their own right. This is a team that should be performing at such a higher level than what they are currently, and the only people stopping them from getting to that level has been themselves this season so far. I do really like Ted Ginn, and I want to see him succeed, but as a first-time head coach, a lot of these mental errors do fall onto him and getting his guys ready for game day. And through 2 weeks, that has not been the case yet. They do have a very interesting situation coming up, playing back-to-back games against Dallas, but that's going to be a very tough 2-game stretch for them, and we'll see how they look after that. But entering it, I'm not as high on Columbus as I was to begin the year. Number 7 is the Louisville Kings, and that was a pretty disappointing showing for the Kings even after the promising loss to the Stallions in week 1. They went out there in their first road game of the season and fell flat against the Storm. Jason Bean played terribly in this game, only 49 yards on 27% completion in this one. Chandler Rogers came in and played better, wasn't enough for the win, but did still play better to an extent, even with the interception he threw in this one. The ground game has been absent through 2 weeks, and it is confusing considering how much talent is in that backfield. Benny Snell, Jaden Sheardon, and Ian Wheeler have talent to be a really good backfield, but they won't be able to show that if they only get 29 carries through 2 weeks of the season. That is just not enough, and it's not going to cut it. You need more carries to be able to establish the run, and you want to be a multifaceted offense in this league because it is a lot tougher to stop. 3 teams so far have had single games with more rushing attempts than the Kings have had all season, and those teams have 10-1 those games that they run the ball a lot in because they're establishing the run well. This is even more confusing when you think about the fact that they had James Robinson on the roster before the season, but they let him go for some reason, favoring the 3 backs I mentioned prior. The defense has been putting up some kind of a fight and some really good fights throughout the season so far, but the offense is giving them no help in any regard, and that's why they sit at 0-2 right now with 2 pretty tough losses, and especially because of a ground game that can't get anything going because they don't have the chance to get things going. This Kings team should be a lot better than it is. They're just in a very weird spot as a team. Number 6 is the Houston Gamblers. No one really gave him a chance in this game. Hell, I didn't either, to be fair. After how they played last week against Dallas, it didn't really create much hope in Houston. With Deckers getting the start, I felt it meant that they could be more competitive in this game, but I didn't really expect to the degree they were, especially when Deckers got hurt towards the end of the first half. Nolan Henderson came in and played light years better compared to what he played last week. They were moving the ball well, getting close, but couldn't quite capitalize in the red zone till late in the game when they got some help from a penalty against Birmingham to be able to get a second chance in the red zone. I will say, being 1 for 6 in the red zone isn't great. This was a close game, even despite the fact that they outgained Birmingham by 120 yards and had 15 more minutes of time of possession. In reality, Houston should have really smoked the Stallions out the building in this one, but instead it took a John Hoyland field goal late to get the win. The defense also did help massively in this game. They picked off Matt Corral twice. It was a really surprising showing from Houston, and hopefully they can build off of, as there are definitely areas they could improve based off what I saw from this game. The biggest one being the clock management at the end of the 2 different halves. Didn't really do the greatest there. It did work, especially in the second half one, but I definitely thought it could have been a bit better given the situations. But a win is a win, and Houston comes in at number 6. Number 5 is the St. Louis Battlehawks. A tough loss for St. Louis when it had a chance late, despite the countless mental errors that was made throughout the entirety of this game, especially in the late stages of this one. The interception on the first drive did not help things, as well as the countless drops that they had as well. The main story of this, though, is going to be Carlos Davis. He had 2 penalties late that cost him the chance at a proper comeback late in this one. The first personal foul was clear, it was obvious, a really bad mental mistake to make there. Headbutting well after the play was over is not a smart thing to do. The roughing the passer, I could understand the mental gymnastics there with that one. What I will say on the matter is, in that type of moment, what the smart thing to do is to wrap up the quarterback and then let him go. But that is a lot easier said than done, especially since I am here at my desk. He is on the field with the adrenaline pumping and in the moment. So I do get the mistake. But that is, again, a mental error to make there given the moment of the game. That would have led to a 4th and 3 and a chance for St. Louis to get the ball back in a really good spot. At the same time, though, St. Louis did simply get outplayed in this game. No matter how you want to slice it based off the mental errors and everything else, at the end of the day, the Battlehawks did get diced by this Renegades offense, and it was really a no competition on this Tuesday night. Number 4 is the Birmingham Stallions. And for what was a pretty okay game all around, it is a disappointing end to that game. The Stallions had the chance late, but the self-inflicted wounds really did cost them in the end in this one. Yes, there were some weird things going on with the penalties and the challenges and everything towards the end of those final 2 minutes, but still, those impacted the game because of how things played out leading up to that moment. The 2 interceptions weren't great from Corral, and the defense couldn't make a proper stop. They gave up 6 straight scoring drives to end this game, and that was a big part of everything. All of them were ended inside the red zone as well. I will say the Birmingham red zone defense and their front 7 especially is playing at an insanely high level right now through 2 weeks. It is very impressive to watch a team be able to bend that much defensively, but at the end of the day, not be able to break unless it is through self-inflicted wounds like it was against Houston this past week. The ground game still feels a bit off at this point. Part of it is the fact that it's an entirely new running back room compared to what they've had in years past, when it has been a really good unit that you can rely on. So there's still some time to work out with how these running backs really mend together and how they fit into the offense, and they're going to have that time to figure things out. They do have a tough matchup coming up next week, though, and I'm very curious to see how they respond to this show and in that next week matchup against St. Louis. Number 3 is the Orlando Storm. Another solid win for the Storm. They start the year hot at 2-0. Yes, both of those wins have also come against brand new teams to the league, as will their next game be as well. The offense had another fine performance in this one. Plummer threw for 182 yards and 2 touchdowns. Did have a bad red zone interception that kept the Kings in this game briefly, but it was fine all around. Dorian Thompson-Robinson even got some action in this game, looked fine with the minimal reps he did get in this game. The ground game didn't have the same level of impact in this one as it did last week, but I did still like that it kept with it in this one. 34 carries on the game for this Orlando run game. The defense did a really good job of forcing Louisville to be one-dimensional in this game. Only gave up 26 yards on the ground to this Kings run game. The Kings quickly abandoned said run game as well. Through the air, the Storm still played pretty well, giving up roughly 200 yards through the air on 35 attempts in this one. They held Jason Bean to 27% completion. They picked off Chandler Rogers once. All around, really good game from the defense. They led in time of possession by 7 minutes, played a very disciplined game penalty-wise, played a game that forced mistakes of Louisville, and then were able to capitalize off of those. While it wasn't the cleanest game, they did fumble twice. They gave the Kings life at the end. A win is a win at the end of the day. Makes them one of 2 teams to begin the year 2-0 at this point, and is a very impressive way to begin the season for the Storm. And Anthony Beck has them playing well. We'll see how he does against Louisville again next week, as this is going to be a pretty interesting back-to-back game for them. We shall see. The Storm are at number 3. Number 2 is the DC Defenders. That was well more in line with what I was expecting from DC this season, especially more in line with what we saw from them last year. They took over the game from the jump and mandated the game to be played their way. In this case, it was a suffocating ground game that ran rapid against this Columbus defense. 250 yards on the ground, Deion Jackson doing most of the damage in this one. 3-touchdown night for him while falling just 3 yards shy of 100 on the day. Teamu didn't have to pass much, but when he did, he was efficient. 8 for 11 for 99 yards. Did throw a pretty bad interception before the end of the first half, but the defense got his back on that one. The defense forced 2 interceptions and 4 total turnovers in this one. They dominated this game, fully proving that last week was just some hiccups from the offseason, and that they took what happened to them at the end of that game the right way. They built off of it. They rallied behind all of those theatrics that was at the end of that game against St. Louis instead of letting it get to them. One final note I want to say here is that game-sealing interception. It was made by Gabriel Taylor, the younger brother of Sean Taylor. And for him to seal the first one of the season for DC wearing the number 21, it must have felt great for him to be able to make a play like that. I'm excited to see what both him and this DC team can do going forward on the year. I'm really excited that they're back to form, it seems, and that the defending champions are fully ready to make a defensive stand with that championship. And number 1, the Dallas Renegades. That was the exact performance I wanted out of the Renegades this week after their dominance against Houston the week prior. They went out there and dominated St. Louis in all facets of the game. The offense had a more well-rounded performance in this game, and thanks to the return of Day-Day Hunter into the lineup, he had a good showing in this one. The connection between Austin Reed and Tyler Vaughns is setting records week after week, as Austin Reed tied the single-game passing touchdown record in this game, and Tyler Vaughns breaks the single-game receiving touchdown record in this game, while now also having over 250 plus yards receiving through 2 weeks. This is a fun offense that is the backing of a really good defense, and as a whole, they are playing like they know they're the better than anyone you put in front of them, and they're making you work for any given yard you can get. They silenced a really good St. Louis front seven. They torched them on the back end. There was a single bad throw from Austin Reed throughout this game, and even with that, I don't care. Everything else he showed in this game was a really damn good showing. Same thing with this Dallas team as a whole. I am fully ready to hop on the Dallas Renegades train after what I've seen through 2 weeks. I want that stadium filled for their Week 3 game against Columbus. This is a Dallas team that you should definitely go out and try and see if you can, if you're in the area. It is a fun team to watch. It's going to put up good football after good football. And depending on how they play next week against Columbus, they might even have another facet of the offense to showcase on display based off what we've seen from Columbus so far this season and what we saw in glimpses from Dallas this week. So a quick little rundown. The Columbus Aviators are at 8, Louisville Kings at 7, Houston Gamblers are at 6, St. Louis Battlehawks at 5, Birmingham Stallions at 4, Orlando Storm at 3, DC Defenders at 2, and the Dallas Renegades round things out at number 1. I appreciate everyone tuning in. Again, subscribe if you're new. It would be greatly appreciated. I'll see you all next time. Have yourselves a damn good one. Peace.